So we do have problems here of the our Ford Focus. It's high idling, and the overdrive light is constantly blinking, which is an indication that there is something wrong with the transmission components. Now I did use my scan tool, and it did say that I need to change both my shift solenoids A and B. However, I'm going to be replacing all six of them because this is a high mileage, and eventually the other ones are going to fail, and I don't want to be doing this twice. So just a quick video take here. These are the brand new shift solenoids, and there's six of them. It took about a good 4 to 5 days before I received them, and so we're going to be installing this. I am going to be installing this today to replace the old ones. These are responsible for smooth shifting of your gears. So if you do have problems with that, let's change this. I also have both the gasket and the filter uh, to replace both the transmission fluid filter and the gasket. So I'm just setting up here and making sure I have all my tools. I have my cordless ratchet wrench and also my 8 millimeter socket wrench and also a pry bar so I can pry down and drop the pan and start uh, draining the transmission fluid before we can start working on the shift solenoid components. We right now are under the car and you're looking at the underside of the transmission. There are, I think, if I'm right, about 20 8 millimeter screws that are holding the pan in place. And we need to go around and start breaking them loose. And make sure that we got our base in there. It's going to be messy. It's going to catch the transmission fluid. So I'm going to use my 8 millimeter socket wrench and start breaking loose each one of these screws. Eventually, we're going to start seeing the transmission fluid start dripping down on one side because I'm going to be completely removing the screws on this side where my socket wrenches, and then leave a few screws on the other end so that the pan drops on one side and it starts draining the fluid into the basin. Now I'm going to use my cordless ratchet wrench to kind of speed things up here. You might want to get yourself a little container for the screw so you don't lose it. It's going to start dripping transmission fluid into the pan. Here you go. It's probably gonna take like a good half an hour to drain this completely. I drop down one side of the pan so it starts draining on one side, and it's gonna drain slowly. And I left some of the screws on this side, so only one side goes drops down and start draining slowly, and we don't make a big mess here.
Bye bye. Okay, thank you. Okay.
At this point, it's almost completely drained out, so we're going to remove the last remaining two screws to completely remove the transmission pan. Now that we finally remove the transmission pan, you can see where the shift solenoids are, and there's six of them. And I'm going to point it out to you one by one, each one of them. We're going to be replacing all six of them. These are the ones that's responsible for smooth um, shifting gears. That's one, two, three, four, five, six. And this is your filter, transmission fluid filter. At this point, we're about to remove the transmission filter. We first remove the wire connector from the filter, and we kind of like move the filter back and forth, or wiggling it back and forth while pulling it downwards until it finally comes off. As you can see, there's a hole right there, and you might want to match that piece on the new filter when you install it. So at this point, we're going to remove the wire connector of our first shift solenoid by pushing the connector and pulling it downwards. And we're going to put that wire here somewhere out of the way. We're going to use our 8mm socket wrench and start removing the screw that holds the shift solenoid in place. Once you remove this screw, you might have to pry out the shift solenoid, but in this case, it was fairly easy. It just came out with no problem. Now we get our new replacement shift solenoid, and we install it same way the old one came out. And we reinstall our screw to secure the new part. Now we reconnect our wire connector. You simply just push it in until you hear it click in place.
And you do the same thing with this, that, that. You saw how it's done. In the back, the way it's removed is you have this brace right here, this metal brace, and you have about 3 screws you need to remove. One here, and then the back, and one right here. Once you remove this brace, all these 3 solenoids pretty much come off when you pry it using a screwdriver. All right, so it's fairly easy. I mean, you see how I took this off, unscrew that, and disconnect the wirings, and just do exactly the way, same procedure as this, that one, that one. You remember the back? It's a brace. You gotta unscrew this metal brace. All right.
You have to make sure that the pan contact surface is completely clean. I use a degreaser and scrub off all the old gasket that used to be there. And as you can see, this pan is clean. Took me about a good 20 minutes um, to get it as nice and clean as it looks right now. If you don't clean it good, it's not going to seal right, and you're going to have some leaks. So make sure clean it good. So now we put the rubber gasket around and match it with the holes where the screws goes in. So now we take this pan and we reinstall it. I'm gonna start putting the screws in place by hand, making sure that it matches where the gasket holes as I go all the way around with each screws, the rubber gasket. So I speed things up using my cordless ratchet, and I go crisscross on each tooth.
Okay, so before you reconnect the battery, you might want to do this in order to completely discharge all your capacitors from remaining electrical charge in it and completely resetting your ECM. So I just kind of like stick a small gauge wire on my positive terminal that's still connected to the battery to my negative cable that's been disconnected from the battery, and I'm gonna leave it here for like a good 15 minutes, and after that I can remove all of this wire connections, and then I can reconnect my battery, therefore resetting my ECM completely and erasing any of the previous code's fault that had been recorded in there, and starting fresh, since I have installed new parts, shift solenoids in my transmission. Alright, so I'll wait about 15 minutes and come back, and this should complete the process. So now we reconnect the battery.